we're just not used to trusting what pops into our head first. We're told not to be impulsive. We're told we need to think things through. And while I do agree there are instances where we shouldn't act without taking a moment to pause or think things through or do a little extra research on something, in other situations, we really need to learn to trust what pops up first. This is the Energy Within podcast, helping you to embrace your weirdness, find the confidence to be your true self, and fully step into your soul's purpose. My name is Carrie Jokala. I am your host. I am a Reiki master teacher, a fitness instructor, a wife, a mom to 2 little boys, and this is episode 157. And yep, it's another car episode. I'm going to try to make sure I find a smoother road to take on the way back home today. And it's probably going to be another couple weeks worth of car/iPhone episodes, just because of, again, how busy everything is and everything being kind of torn down at the moment. So once everything gets put back together, I'll be able to do a... Proper is the wrong word, because I still consider this to be a proper podcast. There's no right or wrong way to podcast, but proper is in having all my usual recording equipment available. But today I wanted to talk about intuition and imagination, because I was somehow reminded in my memory about when I was a writing major in college. For anyone who doesn't know, I was a starving artist major. I double majored in writing and theater, and not because I wanted to use them together. I did not want to write screenplays. I wanted to write fiction books and also be an actress. And at the very least, I figured I would always pursue the writer part of it, because that's what I definitely always wanted to be since I was little. And it just didn't pan out. But I actually don't want to put a cap on it like that, as if it's never going to pan out, because I still would like at some point to be a published author. And I know I can make that happen. But for my writing major, senior year, we had to write this big final paper, and I forget what our prompt was on it. But I chose to write about the imagination and how, as we get older, we tend to lose our imagination. It tends to get quelled. And not really fully understanding how to make a thesis in the paper that I then followed through on with this whole big conclusion and whatnot, beyond just making it a factual research paper. I don't really know that I made any major point in my paper other than our imagination tends to get quelled and suppressed as we get older. But I got a good grade on it. I passed. We also had to present it, and it was actually a lot of fun. There was a whole dinner and everything. It was a whole big event. And I thought of it recently because I've started to believe, and I think I've said this before, but I've started to believe that our intuition in many ways is our imagination. Our imagination is our intuition. Now, barring our imagination running away with us, where we're getting wrapped up in anxiety and imagining all the horrible possibilities of things that could happen that we're worried about, that aside, the moments when something pops into your head out of nowhere, or you're thinking about the answer that you need for something, and the first thing that pops in your head could be a good solution, but then you tend to overthink your way out of it and apply way too much logic, so you never actually do it or think that you can do it. But as I've gone on this journey since I started learning Reiki, what I have found is that whatever pops into my head first when I'm doing a Reiki session is correct. And In some ways, I think having taken a journalism class and being really good at it, and then being the co-editor of my newspaper in high school, I think that ruined me a little bit, because it's made me almost too professional in my speech and my writing, because I almost said that the first thing that pops into our head is usually or typically correct. Because what I remember from journalism class is that you as the writer know nothing. Anything that you put in your article has to be attributed to somebody else. Where did you get your information? How do you know that? So I tend to put in words like typically and usually, but no, it's correct. And I've often found, too, that the things that pop into my head that I see during a session or feel during a session that don't make any sense to me, the ones that I briefly consider skipping over or not telling the person about, but I always do, because I've told myself from the beginning that no matter what I think I see or whatever happens, I'm going to tell my clients everything, whether I understand it or not, whether it makes any sense or not. And what's funny is the things that make the least sense to me often have the most significance to my clients. For example, a group session where a salamander came out of the throat chakra. And I no longer remember off the top of my head what a salamander represents spiritually, but we looked it up during the session. We Googled it afterwards as we were talking about everything that came up, and it resonated with everybody. I remember that, but especially one woman, it had major significance for her, and salamanders had actually been popping up at significant moments in this healing journey that she had been on, and then finding out what they actually represent spiritually sent her down this whole research thing and opening her up to more possibilities for her own ability to heal. And it was this whole beautiful thing. But you would think, and especially many of us when we start this journey, when you're starting to learn Reiki or just trying to get back in touch with your intuition, it's so easy to not only doubt what pops in your head, but if you do explain it to somebody, then you temper it with, well, I don't know if it was my imagination. I'm probably making this up. And I used to say that all the time. And I've stopped saying that. Because we're just not used to trusting what pops into our head first. We're told not to be impulsive. We're told we need to think things through. And while I do agree there are instances where we shouldn't act without taking a moment to pause or think things through or do a little extra research on something, in other situations, we really need to learn to trust what pops up first. My experience these last couple of years has been that that is correct. And even another experience where when I was still in Reiki 2, and in fact, I just happened to rewatch this class, the recording of this one, and I was doing my own card pull, and I wanted to also find out who my spirit guides were, because I hadn't had any experience either in meditation or during a Reiki session of anybody stepping forward yet. And so I just asked, who are my spirit guides? And I don't remember if I asked for a name. I think I did. I think I did ask for a name. And the very first thing that popped into my head was Aya. And I'm like, Aya? What is that? Like, okay, that's not a name. I mean, maybe it's a name somewhere. Now I feel like Lilo and Stitch. That's not a real name in Iceland. But here it's a good name. But I remember thinking that okay, all right, well, I was hoping for, like a Katie or something like that, or some kind of a recognizable name that would resonate with me. And I didn't get that. I got Aya. I'm like, okay. All right, fine, we'll go with it. And I didn't really do anything else beyond it at that moment. I didn't try to meditate more on it really, or connect with this Aya. And what was also interesting is that I was using the only deck I had at the time, which was a fairy oracle deck, which I still have. But what happened was, a week or two later, during Reiki class, I got paired with Aaliyah, who I've had on this podcast before. And she said that for the first time for her, she had someone else, which is someone else's spirit guide step forward. She's like, I've never had anyone else's spirit guide step forward, but yours did. One was a polar bear, and the other one was a fairy. And she not only insisted that she had to be there, but she kept trying to tell Aaliyah her name. And Aaliyah couldn't quite understand exactly what she was saying. And so when Aaliyah was telling me about this, she was saying what she thought the name might have been, and she was trying things like Ava, Eva, and Ava. The way she was saying that, I was sitting there thinking, this can't be real. Because I hadn't told her anything about trying to figure out who my spirit guides were. But I asked her, could it possibly have been Aya? And she lit up and she's like, I think that sounds right. And I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. So we go from this sort of ridiculous sounding name in the beginning that just popped into my head that I was like, okay, yeah, all right, to finding out with no prompting, no prior discussion, no way of Aaliyah having any idea about any of it, to her telling me that I had a spirit guide step forward who was a fairy named Aya. So examples like that are why I say trust what pops into your head first. And yes, again, I do still want to make room for times when we know our brain is on hyperdrive and we're not in a state where we're tuned in. But if you can get quiet, if you get those nudges, you get those butterflies in your stomach, or you feel something in your heart, or you feel a buzzing in your head or something, start to notice whatever you might be feeling physically, where you might be feeling it, when you're getting these intuitive hits, even if you don't think of them right away as intuitive hits, but whatever is popping into your head first, take a moment and try to notice where you feel it, how you feel it, and that'll be your first clue, so that the next time you're asking yourself a question and you're trying to get an intuitive answer, you might start to notice the same physical thing again. And then you might also start to notice, because maybe that's your yes, you might start to notice what your no feels like when something doesn't resonate, when something doesn't make sense or doesn't feel true for you. You might feel something different in a different part in your body. So the more you're able to get quiet, to listen, to feel, the easier it will become over time to trust. No matter how ridiculous anything might seem that first pops up, chances are it's correct. If you're having trouble really quieting your mind, and maybe there's a lot of anxiety or other emotional or mental things that are getting in the way, and you know that they're in the way, your first step is just to practice trying to settle it down and not putting that pressure on yourself to have to listen right now. Focus on learning how to slow down first. So trying things like meditation or yoga, or going to receive Reiki or some type of energy work, something that's going to be more gentle. Those are your first steps, and you do that as long as you need to until you feel like you're able to really listen to the answers that are coming in. So first start just learning to calm down and get quiet. Then just notice if you have information, answers coming in. Notice what you're feeling when they come in, where you feel them. what a yes feels like, what a no might feel like. And don't question any of it. Just notice it. Journal about it if you have to. Just start writing things down and taking notes so that maybe as you look back, then you might start noticing a pattern, even if you don't remember the pattern. If you can write it down, then it might start to become more clear. And then you just keep practicing, and the confidence and the trust in yourself will grow. So I hope that was helpful. I hope that made sense. Really, my thesis conclusion is that our intuition and our imagination are one and the same. That, of course, we can let our imagination run wild, but perhaps the initial purpose of our imagination is connection to our intuition. I don't have any details yet, but I do have something big on the way that I'm going to be putting together. I will tell you that it's going to revolve solely around root chakra healing, and I'll describe a lot more once I have it sort of structured out, how and why the root is going to be the main focus. And it's going to be rather intense. I have a feeling that this has the potential to be something really big. So I want to put a lot of my best efforts into creating it and making it into what it's meant to be. So stay tuned for details on that as I figure out more. Lots of big, deep healing meant to come from this program that I want to put together. So I've just made it home, so that's my other cue to wrap this up. If you enjoyed this episode, if it resonated with you, if there were parts that stuck out to you, please help the show to reach more people and share it, whether that means sharing it on your social media and tagging me, I am Carrie Jokala, or simply sending it to a family member or a friend. And reach out and give me your feedback. Let me know what's helpful. Let me know what's resonating. Let me know what you need more of. You can send me a DM, or you can hop inside the Energy Within Facebook group and let me know in there. And like I said, it's going to be a few more weeks, but hopefully as things settle down, I can enter into more of a routine and get myself back into the group a little bit more often, doing card pulls and Reiki and all that good stuff. But if you are in search of some help on your healing journey, some guidance, some confirmation, a boost of confidence, please come see me for a Reiki session, or even just book a card pull. We can do those right by email, so real simple. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you next time.